Good evening and welcome to Worldview, the international affairs show that brings you the news and views that other networks can't or won't tell you about. I'm Alan Mendoza. Our show tonight, Arise Sir Salman. To what extent should international opinion influence domestic decision-making? This week, the Muslim world has been up in arms about the decision to award controversial author Salman Rushdie a knighthood. The Booker Prize-winning author had previously been placed under a fatwa in 1989 by Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran for his book The Satanic Verses, which was judged to have blasphemed against the Prophet Muhammad. Now, with Rushdie back in the spotlight, the Iranians have declared that the decision shows Britain's Islamophobia, and Pakistan's Minister of Religious Affairs has suggested that it will encourage terrorism. The Muslim Council of Britain considers it yet another example of insensitivity to Muslim opinion that will only result in their further alienation. So, coming hot on the heels of the cartoons controversy and the veil debate, is the Rushdie decision insensitive, Islamophobic, or merely the demonstration of British freedom of expression? And how much attention should be paid to international opinion and the views of faith communities when considering such artistic measures? Well, joining me tonight in the Worldview studio to unpick this topic are the contributing editor of Q News, the Muslim magazine, Abdul Rahman Malik, the director of English Pen, Jonathan Hayward, and the director of the Centre for Social Cohesion, Douglas Murray. Well, gentlemen, we live in interesting times. Quite a ferocious reaction this week. I'm going to start with you, Jonathan, as there are rumours, and I don't know if you're going to substantiate this tonight, that English Pen were actually responsible for this nomination. I don't know whether you'd like to comment on that.
Well, I'm sure you know it's just terribly infra-dig for any organisation or individual ever to confirm or deny
such
rumours, but we have been fingered by Michael White of The Guardian, among others, who suggested that this was on the evidence of a leak from well-placed government sources. So clearly there's an element of passing the buck. But I'm not ashamed to say that English Pen, and I'm sure other writers' organisations which have supported Salman Rushdie over the years, had lobbied for some kind of official recognition of his status as a writer. So on Saturday morning, I was delighted. The paper landed on the doormat. There he is, beaming out at me, all charming expression as ever, and Arise Sir Salman, and we thought great news. Those of us who had supported him, clearly our voice has been heard, and call me naive, and I'm sure I'm about to be called naive, but at that moment I thought this was nothing but good news.
And it has since been proven otherwise.
Now,
Douglas, no one will ever call you naive. Could you foresee this coming the minute you heard the news?
No. You're always surprised by people who are willing to take offence at anything, by how low their bar of offence-taking indeed is. To my mind, who Her Majesty the Queen desires tonight is a matter for Her Majesty the Queen and her government. I don't see what is so wrong about Sir Salman Rushdie. I think it's a wonderful thing. I have to say I'm not the greatest admirer of his books. I think he's a very good writer, but I don't think that anyone could see this as being anything but a sign of independence on the part of the knighting commissions, or whoever is behind these things. It shows great independence, it shows great pluck, I think a good deal of sense, apart from anything else, if people are going to object to Sir Salman Rushdie. I'd love to know why they don't mind when the idiot Lord Ahmed is made a lord. Why should he be made a lord and Sir Salman can't be made a knight? Why Sir Salman Rushdie shouldn't be made a knight and, say, Sir Iqbal Sikrani should be, a man who said that death was too good for Salman Rushdie. If he can be knighted, then I certainly think Salman Rushdie should be knighted. I think it vaguely cancels out the evil of knighting Iqbal Sikrani and giving a peerage to the goon Ahmed.
Strong words, Abdul Rahman. Your view on the subject, do you agree with sort of Douglas's hard-hitting assessment there, or are you going to veer somewhere else?
Well, at Q News, we've never been fans of Iqbal Sikrani, so I think we'd offer our agreement with you on that count. But I think it's just poor policy making is what's going on here. Whether he should be knighted or not is now a moot point. He's knighted, it's over, it's done. We have to deal with the fallout. But a government that is involved in a foreign adventure in Afghanistan, Pakistan, that is mucking things up in Iraq, that has completely messed up its role as part of the quartet in the peace process in Israel-Palestine, ought to be thinking very carefully about the implications of even small decisions, particularly as these are stated foreign policy goals and objectives, and this administration hasn't done very well on foreign policy issues to begin with. So I think that's something that we certainly have to weigh and we certainly have to look at. Margaret Beckett's comments, I think, reported by Reuters today, that this was in fact an honor for Muslims. We're honoring Muslims, she said, vacuously, is just plain daft and silly.
He was honoured, and he was a Muslim.
Exactly. But this idea that somehow by honouring him, we are honouring all Muslims because here's a Muslim, British Muslim writer, is just plain stupid and not understanding really
Why doesn't
the
he
sensitivities
represent?
of the communities.
Why doesn't he represent Muslims in this country?
Because he's not a Muslim, first of all.
But a lot of people were born Muslims and aren't anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. But he's not. That's not his game. If you go back and look at Salman Rushdie, I think what was always honourable about him was this very straightforward, hard-hitting, a lot of the time anti-establishment, made the white establishment very, very angry and upset in the 1980s. The fatwa turned him into kind of a goon of the establishment and now an apologist for current debacles, including the war on terror and other things like that. But that for me, is absolutely secondary to the issue of whether or not this was good policy and met the government's old stated foreign policy objectives. And frankly, it didn't. Now the question, if we should be giving truck to people like Minister Ijaz in Pakistan and the Iranians, I mean, these were predictable reactions. I don't think we could have expected any different given the current political situation.
Okay, Jonathan, they're slightly ridiculous reactions, aren't they, from Iran and Pakistan, for example? I mean, it's predictable, but it's ridiculous at the same time. Should we be interested in what Iran and Pakistan have to say on this subject?
I think the real problem here is there are two completely incompatible and yet both accurate realities. As Douglas says, there's the reality of 21st century Britain, the establishment honouring a writer who, for the bulk of his career, was a fairly dissident voice, coming from the subcontinent, expressing a whole new kind of writing in the vanguard of what's now almost the dominant tradition of the kind of Booker Prize-winning Kiran Desai, polyglot, intertextual, Asian meets British, meets multiple identities novel, which is the dominant form. Salman Rushdie brought that in '82 with Midnight's Children. This could have been a great day, but for those few lines, perhaps, in his fourth novel, and but for the reaction which they garnered, he could have been and also, but perhaps for his personality as well, in courting controversy. This could have been a day in which a South Asian writer was honoured by the establishment. He doesn't, you know.
How do you think he courted controversy?
I think he did. At the time of the Satanic Verses, English Pen supported him almost as much as anyone could have done.
Quite right.
Offered
Absolutely.
him support, moral and material.
What did he do that was provocative?
I do remember at the time he did go on. I think he was invited to go on what was then the kind of Asian strand on BBC to talk about the Satanic. I mean, someone saw a kind of vaguely ethnic name and clearly thought, "Oh, we'll have him on." He proceeded to highlight the most controversial passages in the book. It's a book which is about many things, primarily about immigration and integration in Thatcher's Britain. It's a coruscating satire on Thatcher's Britain. I'm not saying in any respect he shouldn't have done that, but nor is he a man who has shied away from controversy. Let's put it that way.
I'm just sort of stating like that. I mean, the fact that nothing he did, nothing he wrote, is really controversial at all in the eyes of most people. In that he expressed an opinion quite densely shown in the book about a sort of form of satire of the Quran, which is fairly low, at a low level of the importance of the book, and makes a reference to Islam's prophet Muhammad. Says things which ordinarily would cause no fuss if you said them about any other religion. If you said them about Christianity, you'd join a great many people across the Western press saying, if you said it about anything else...
Including someone like Dan Brown. I mean, Dan Brown, in many ways, the blasphemies, if you call them that, in the Da Vinci Code are far greater than those in...
I mean, it seems to me that the only important issue here is why there are people who take such great offence at such small things.
Well,
I mean, you said earlier about the cartoons controversy. Isn't it ridiculous that we talk about the cartoons controversy?
But I think it's naive and it's plain having blinders on your eyes, not to recognize that these